Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's Recurly training session on maintaining legacy billing systems. Before I go ahead and get into details, if anyone would just like to confirm that you can hear me okay, feel free to use that chat box on the side of the screen and make sure my sound is going through. All right, thanks everyone. That was good to get instant confirmation. I'm glad to hear people are here and paying attention. So today we're going to talk about using Recurly to transition legacy systems. To introduce myself, my name is Rachel Quick. I am the Senior Director of Customer Support at Recurly, and I have been at Recurly since pretty much the dawn of time. So if anything comes up with regards to transitioning a legacy system, I've seen it. So to just give you a brief overview of what we're going to do today, the first thing to note, of course, is that we're using GoToWebinar. So if a question comes up in the course of the conversation, please use that chat box on the right side of your screen to enter your question. I'll keep an eye out throughout the course of the webinar for questions as they come up in context. We'll also have a larger Q&A session at the end. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my background doing legacy systems and migrations into Recurly. We're going to talk about the timing of an import and what the process looks like. We'll also talk about how you work with price grandfathering and bill cycle dates to respect those legacy users and how they've been built. And then I'll do sort of an informal gotcha section. I've been doing this for so long that I've sort of seen anything that can and will go wrong. And I've also seen a lot of best practices. So hopefully there I can provide some guidance that you folks can consider as you're looking at implementing a migration into Recurly. And then finally, as I mentioned, we'll do an open Q&A at the end for any questions that didn't get answered throughout the course of the webinar. All right, so to go back to my background, I've been at Recurly for 4 years. And before I was at Recurly, I was actually at 2 different startups doing customer support and maintaining legacy billing systems. At one startup, I actually was maintaining 3 different billing systems. At another one, I was maintaining a homegrown solution while we were implementing an enterprise solution. So this is something that is near and dear to my heart. It is the reason why I joined Recurly those 4 years ago, because I firmly believe in the solution they offer, and I saw the pain and saw the light at the end of the tunnel that was Recurly. So this webinar is for you if you're moving away from a homegrown billing product. And that typically means you need to move into something else because your developers are split. They can't focus their energy on maintaining billing code. They need to focus on the product. So it's a great time to move into Recurly, to outsource all of that work, to get the PCI compliance requirements off of your shoulders, and have Recurly take that all over for your team, leading you to concentrate on your core business. You may also be in this webinar if you've outgrown a platform like PayPal. PayPal is a great solution for brand new companies, but it's challenging to grow, and it's challenging to work with as you grow your business and move into other billing solutions and offerings. So what we've seen is that when merchants outgrow a platform like PayPal, they can't do much with the data in PayPal. It's not exportable, so your customer service staff might be looking in multiple different places to find information about a customer. That's certainly a scenario I've had to deal with. Finally, this webinar might be for you if you need to centralize your billing. Sort of tying back into PayPal, we often have merchants who have outgrown their solutions, whether it's homegrown or PayPal or an enterprise solution, and you really want to get everything in one system, and you want to focus on true recurring billing functionality, because other platforms do offer recurring billing, but Recurly specializes in this. So this is an area, moving everything into Recurly, which is a true recurring billing platform, will allow you to just take a step back and breathe and sort of let everything Recurly does happen while you focus on your business. All right, so this timeline is what we're going to mainly focus on today. We're going to go through this step by step, but when you're looking at doing a transition from a legacy platform, it's important to plan. and you're going to hear this from me over and over again throughout the course of this webinar, there are probably a dozen to 2 dozen little tiny steps that take place as part of an import, and there are a lot of questions and conversations to have. So I'm going to highlight the large ones in this conversation, and we can always have more specific conversations about the other little teeny tiny details that pertain to just your business in the future. So the first thing I want to mention with timing is you want to start this process as soon as possible. I've seen imports from legacy systems happen in as shortly as 24 hours. I've had some that are going on 6 months, if not a little bit longer, and that's really an outlier. The average is usually about 2 weeks. So just something to keep in mind, that timing is really critical if you have a developer deadline or a business initiative. It's great to start planning as soon as possible. So of course, that first step is to connect with Recurly. Let us know you are planning an import and give us a date. It doesn't matter how tentative the date is. I like to block out the time on our engineering calendar so that we have the resources dedicated for you, and our engineering team knows how to plan for your pending import. This date can change as often as you need it to as priorities shift, but just stay in touch with us. If Recurly is handling the credit card import ourselves, which we'll talk about in a little bit, we do charge a professional services fee. So you'll definitely want to connect with Recurly. Let us know how many credit cards you're importing, and we'll get back to you with a quote for the professional services fee. And then, of course, we just want to kick off the conversation and talk about those site-specific issues. From the very point that you connect with Recurly about an import, you're going to get connected with me, and I'm going to open my file with my 3 dozen check marks that only I have to worry about. Don't worry, it's not as complicated for you. So I want to start this process with you as soon as possible so we make sure your import is smooth. So the next step is to talk to your gateway. You need to ensure that your gateway supports data exports. You need to understand their timeline. Some gateways are absolutely rapid fire and will turn around same day. Others only do this sort of process quarterly, or maybe they need some sort of executive escalation to do this. So you want to know what their timeline is. And a very select few gateways will charge you to export your data. So that's also something to consider. But before we move on, I want to talk about what happens when merchants hit an instant halt at this point. There are some gateways that just will not export credit card data. It's very common. It's less common though. You'll see the little badge on the right side of your screen for credit card data portability. This is really a move towards towards getting rid of vendor lock-in. Recurly fully supports credit card data portability, which means if you ever choose to leave Recurly, of course we'd hate to see you go, but we will give your data to any other PCI compliant vendor. We will handle the transition process for you. It's very smooth. We don't want to hold on to this and make life any harder for you. So some gateways, some providers out there either don't have the means to do an export, or because of their own internal policies, they will not provide the exports to another provider. So when this happens, there's really 2 solutions. The first one is to maintain that legacy system. And I know this webinar is actually designed to get away from that, but sometimes it's just a reality that, for example, you can't get your credit card data out of PayPal. So what we've typically seen is that merchants will start using Recurly, and as their customers choose to upgrade or downgrade or change any of their information, they'll move them from PayPal into Recurly. So that's one option. That's sort of the soft touch. The second option, which is a little more aggressive, is more of a marketing and communication effort. Send your customers an email saying, hey, we're moving to a new system. Click here to create an account and provide your billing information again. I've seen merchants do this a couple months in advance, and usually they sort of start with the opt-in users, and then they sort of move to the carrot stick approach, where as it gets closer to deadline, they'll say, do this now and you get 5% off your billing for the next year, a weekend 20% off, and so on and so on. And this is actually fairly effective. I've seen this used very, very successfully as a way to get users off of PayPal and into Recurly. And then again, just to reiterate, credit card data portability. This is something a lot of the new providers, a lot of the providers in the Recurly space like Braintree and Stripe support. So you will never have to go through something like this again. If you outgrow our system or if you just decide you need another platform, we will certainly help export your data. So please have that comfort knowing you are not locked in. All right, so going back to our timeline, the next step is obtaining a test file from your gateway. Now, I'd say if you're currently working with a provider like Stripe or Braintree, don't worry about that. We work with Stripe and Braintree on a weekly basis. Their data is impeccable. They're a fabulous partner. They give us clean data. They give us data quickly. It's great to work with them. Other providers, especially smaller sort of one-off companies that don't do recurring billing, tend to struggle with exports a bit more. So it's always a great idea to reach out to them and say, hey, can you send Recurly a fake set of data, just so we can know what the file format looks like, what the column headers are. It gives us a chance to review the data and make sure we can work with the gateway. It also gives us an idea to scope the import. Of course, looking at the size of the import, looking at the any errors. We've seen, one of the things I've seen commonly is rows will, it's a very technical error, but rows will get shifted. And so, you know, all of a sudden we're looking at this spreadsheet and I start seeing that the customer's email address is in their zip code field. This just really gives us a chance to work with the other vendor and make sure we have a really smooth transfer of data. The next step is a little bit not intuitive for some of our customers, which is go live. You want to start with your Recurly account before you even deal with your legacy users. It gives you a chance to ensure that the functionality is working just the way you want it to. It ensures that any integration you have on the background is stable and working for these new users. And it gives your customer service staff sort of a training ground before the hordes descend. So we always say go live. Make sure you work out all of the kinks. You're processing new subscribers before you proceed. And this is actually a critical part because you don't want to have data going into your old gateway while you're working on the process of a migration. It just complicates the process. So that's why the next step is initiate the export. So at this point, you've gone live in Recurly, you're getting new subscribers, and you want to get those legacy customers into Recurly. So the first thing to do is pause billing. And as I mentioned, that's because once your gateway exports the data, we don't want to see any changes. They're likely not going to do it for you twice. And then we will work with the gateway provider directly to handle the export from their end and the import into their system. Now, to give you a general timeline, 3 business days is a firm timeline. We have a lot of people who, you know, the idea is they want to do a quick code cutover and they're looking for a 24-hour or even shorter window. It's not possible. This is a process that we are extremely cautious about because this is like the core of your customer data. You don't want to make mistakes. We put this through full QA. We put this, this is senior members of our development QA and support teams are working on this data. It is very careful and very precise, and we take the time to make sure it's done right, because if it goes wrong, you're really going to regret pushing that 3-day timeline. And then finally, the last part of this process is just a spot check. Validate the data Recurly has imported into your system, make sure it looks good, make sure it matches what's in your legacy system. And then we do the import, of course. This is the point in time in which you start looking at replicating the user from your old system. Maybe they have account credits that need to be put into Recurly or outstanding balances past due invoices. The other step here is that anytime you do an import into another system, you should expect some error rate. It could be because maybe the old system had different address verification than the new system, or maybe just between the time of their last bill, something changed. So there will be, you know, depending on your business model, you will have a small percentage of import errors. Recurly provides that listing to you, and then you can follow up with those users to make sure they do a manual update of their billing information. Then at that point, you're going to want to cancel the billing in your legacy system. You've ensured that everything that's in there is now in Recurly, and it's okay to stop billing. Now, what's important is you're going to stop billing, but you're going to want to maintain the legacy system. The reason why we say this is that in most cases, a credit card transaction can only be refunded via the original source. So because Recurly maybe didn't process the transaction from 30 days ago, we can't refund it. So you want to maintain that legacy system so that you can go back and deal with any refunds or chargebacks. The other thing I'll point out is that Recurly cannot import historical data like transactions or invoices. So you may need to reference your legacy system to ensure that you have that sort of full chain of customer history moving forward. So then finally, the last step is to initiate billing for your legacy customers. At this point, you have the customers inside of Recurly. They're created as accounts with billing information. And what we'll talk about in the rest of this webinar is sort of how that works, how to get them back on their original bill cycle, how to email them and what sort of emails get out. But at this point, you can relax. We've got it handled now. We've got everything in our system. Your new and your legacy users are being processed together, and you should start seeing some revenue coming in. So that is the general timeline of an import. It seems fairly daunting, but it's something we do every single day. So it's something you shouldn't stress about. Put that work on us. We handle all of the checklists, we handle the work, and we'll make sure this goes as smoothly as possible. So the next thing I want to talk about is how you handle importing legacy customers and their billing. Recurly itself has gone through pricing changes just like any other company has done in their life cycle. So if you are importing in a series of legacy users, you want to make sure you're respecting that original billing agreement they had with your company. The first way to do this is with a quote-unquote legacy plan, basically just a unique subscription plan that would identify the user as a legacy user. So you can see here I've created this gold legacy plan with a custom price. The nice thing about this is it sort of separates out these users in your reporting. It gives you a better idea of the fact that while they show up sort of in Recurly as starting today, they actually have more of a history in your other systems. The downside is actually the same in the reporting. It's often really nice to have all of your users that are getting the gold package on a gold plan. So depending on how you look at reporting and want to work with that, that's one option. Now the next option is my favorite option, which is custom pricing. When you create a subscription plan in Recurly, like this gold plan, you tell Recurly what the default is, which is $4.99 per month USD. But within Recurly on a per user basis, you can actually override that. So you could charge a user on the gold plan $200 a month or $2 a month, and it will only impact that user for the life cycle of their subscription. So you have a great way to keep them all on the same plan for reporting purposes, but have that legacy billing set at a custom level. And of course, if you've joined any of my other webinars, you know how much I love account notes. So I always leave an account note whenever I do something custom like that in Recurly. If I have someone coming back in 10 years wondering why this customer has special pricing, there's an account note indicating why. Now the final option is to do something with coupons. Coupons can be configured to have a dollar amount off that will have a lifespan of forever. So that basically means that as long as the coupon is active on the account, this discount will apply. This is a great option if you really want to have a line item on the customer communication. It will show that they get a $5 discount. And sometimes that's a really nice reminder to your customers that you've given them this, that they have this functionality for less than what new customers are getting. It's a good reminder of the value they're getting from your product. And I'm just going to plug in my laptop quickly. I should never do GoToMeeting without a charger nearby. All right, so the other option when you're importing these custom users is that you want to make sure their bill cycle date aligns with what they were being billed in your old system. This really helps prevent confusion. And hopefully we have some folks from the support queue in here. I think about an hour ago, this very question came into the support queue, so I said I would do a specific demo for them. There are 4 options for bill cycle dates. The first thing you can do is create a subscription that starts in the future. And so say you had a customer who was last billed in PayPal on August 28th. You can create it so that you can create the customer subscription now, but tell Recurly, do not activate this until September 28th. But what I've noted here is that this isn't actually ideal for migrations because it causes problems with customer communication. So what would happen on September 28th, the subscription is created and then the customer gets an email saying, hey, you have a new subscription. It makes it a little less transparent. It makes it more obvious to the customer that you're doing a migration. And most companies want to make this as hidden as possible. Now, you can always disable the emails, but because you have different users on different bill cycles and different days, it means you have a much longer period in which you'd have to disable the email so that as these customers roll over and their subscriptions start, you can disable the email and not have it go out. Now, if you're doing something manually, maybe you have about 50 customers and you don't want to get involved with the API, you can use the postpone functionality. This functionality is a little bit of a misnomer because it basically means I want to change the renewal date of a subscription. So you can create a subscription to start today, and then you can edit the subscription to say, I want this to renew on a specific date. So even if it's a 1-month subscription that started today, I could use this functionality to say, bill this customer for the next time on September 28th, and then Recurly will bill on the 28th every month thereafter. Something similar to future start date is a custom trial. And this is really what I recommend doing for customer imports. And it's very flexible. There's a lot you can do. There's a lot of integration methods you can do it with. But the advantage is that the customer is put into trial mode. So their subscription is activated right away in Recurly, but they're in a trial period. And the reason why you want to do that is because they do have an active bill cycle. They paid you in the other system. So you don't want to have them in a paid bill cycle inside of Recurly because then you have that revenue sort of doubled in your reporting. Once they hit their regular renewal date, say September 28th again, they move out of trial and they get a regular subscription renewal invoice email. So the customer path is really clean. There's a lot of integration options depending on your developer resources. This is really the way I like to work with subscription imports. And then finally, there's another option, a little less elegantly named, called Custom First Renewal. And this is really ideal for companies who ship physical goods or who want to bill on a specific day of the month. What you do is you tell Recurly that the customer has a first renewal date, say for example, October 1st. Recurly will start the subscription automatically and bill the customer a prorated charge from today to October 1st. And then on October 1st, they are billed the full subscription amount, and then they are billed the first of the month every month thereafter. And again, this is ideal for companies who are shipping physical goods. One of my favorite Recurly customers sends me coffee on the first of every month. They only brew it, they only roast it once a month, so they want to make sure they're billing me right at that date. It connects the billing with the receipt of the goods a little more closely, so that's a really nice option for them. So that's definitely something to explore if you have a legacy system and you want to have a specific renewal date for any sort of reason. So one of the things I wanted to give a quick demo was going back to that support ticket that came in today. So I'm actually going to move over to my test site here and just refresh because I'm sure I got logged out, and I did. So This is the status of a Recurly account after a migration has started. This is what would happen when the data, when the sort of ownership of the migration moves from Recurly to the customer. During our migration, we create the account, which you can see here, and we add the billing information. So at your point, at the point the data comes to you, you're responsible for adding their subscription. Now, one of the cases I heard in the support queue was, what do we do if we have a user on an annual subscription and they're only, 3 months into their cycle? How can we align that? Well, when you go to add a subscription, we can, and unfortunately this is a monthly plan. If I was smart, I would have created a yearly plan. But I can create the subscription plan, and then I can modify their bill cycle date. So, in the case, if this was a yearly plan, I could say, I don't want this to bill until next year in April. Maybe they were billed April 1st of 2014. So within Recurly, you can now say, okay, this is the customer's bill cycle. Bill them next on April 1st, 2015. And then from that point on, they will bill every year on the anniversary of that date. So just a quick demo on how that sort of postpone functionality works to change bill cycle dates to respect the customer's original bill date. It's something, and I spend a lot of time on that because it's something, a lot of merchants don't necessarily worry about or think about until it's too late, until a customer says, well, hey, you just billed me on the 1st of the month. Why are you billing me on the 5th? When you're working with subscription billing, customers do look really closely at their invoices to see bill cycle dates, and they don't like it when you do sort of an import and don't align their bill cycle dates to what they've been paying you for in the past. All right, let me go back to my presentation here. And so just for a quick visual, although we did a demo, this is what it looks like to create a future start date subscription. When you're adding the subscription to the account, you can tell Recurly, don't bill this customer until September 25th. So the subscription will show on their account, but it will not activate and bill the customer until this date has passed. And then, of course, the example I gave here, where you have the functionality to change renewal date. And this date can move forward and back. The only limitation is that the date has to be in the future. It cannot be, 10 minutes ago. So if I needed a customer who signed up today to be billed in 2 hours, that is something you can configure here very, very easily. So gotchas. As I mentioned, don't plan for a 24-hour or less cutover. We've accommodated these in the past, and they've never gone well, not for the fault of any particular person. It's just a huge juggling game. We've had cutovers that needed to happen within a 3-hour window, and when we received the data from the gateway, it was wrong. So, then everyone's scrambling, everyone's under pressure. You want to make sure you give yourself a lot of time to do this the right way. As I mentioned, expect anywhere between 1 to 10% of the credit cards to be invalid when you do an import. Things happen, especially if you have an annual subscription plan. So, things can happen between the time in which they were last billed in your old system and moving them into Recurly for the new processing. You should also expect some number of declines the first month. This ties into annual billing as well, actually, because so many things can change. The great thing about Recurly doing a migration for you is that we take the information from the billing provider, so long as it has a valid format, and we store it on the account and we allow you to create the subscriptions. So if something does happen, the customer gets an automated email from Recurly saying, hey, your payment was declined, click here to update your billing information. So outside of those few 1 to 10% of credit cards that we look at before the import and say, oh wow, something is really wrong here, Recurly is going to help you recapture everything else on an automated basis. As I talked about a little bit earlier, make sure you maintain that legacy system for 1 to 3 months. Typically, if you've gotten everything canceled out and you're not running billings, you're just paying a minimum monthly fee, and it's sort of worth it to have that insurance for chargebacks or refunds or any additional reporting you need to get out of the system. Again, plan ahead with me as much as possible. This is pretty much my favorite thing to do at Recurly, and I love organizing these. I think the whole team groans when I pull out my checklist because they know I'm always looking to make sure everything is complete before we move on. But it's never too early to let me know that this is coming down the pipeline and that you have questions. I want to make sure you feel totally comfortable and confident making this change. And then, of course, to note, we cannot import historical data. For both accounting and auditing reasons, we can only maintain information that has occurred inside of Recurly. We're not a CRM, so if you are looking for sort of that holistic picture of your customers, you need to use a true CRM like Salesforce, and then you can report on the whole history of the customer. Other than that, though, everything from import day on forward, Recurly manages for you, and you have a great picture of your customer moving ahead. And, cheesy reminder, you won't ever have to do this again for two reasons. The first is that Recurly is exceptionally designed to grow with your business. We have merchants who have started with us and they're processing $50 a month and are now processing hundreds of thousands of dollars per month. With everything from our gateways to our reporting to our integrations, there's sort of a level that's appropriate for every stage of your business, whether you're just getting started as a startup or you are a full enterprise provider. So our hope is that if you choose to move into Recurly, you're not going to have to do this again because we have the flexibility to grow with your business and to give you functionality. You're not going to hit a point where it's like, oh, I have to move to another provider. But if you do, we do practice that full credit card data portability, so we will make it very, very easy to move to another provider. All right, so at this point, I'd love to open this up to questions. So please use that GoToMeeting box on the right side of your screen to post any questions. And just a few resources up here. docs.recurly.com actually has a whole section that has an integration guide I wrote up, or I'm sorry, an import guide. It walks through sort of the 5 considerations you need to put into place to do an import, and it's more customized at self-imports. So companies who are currently storing the credit card data themselves and don't need Recurly to help with the process. So definitely take a look at that. Also, support@recurly.com. Of course, that's where my fabulous support team lives, and we're always happy to answer any questions you have. And then finally, info.recurly.com has all of our training sessions and webinars. I try to do these at least twice a month. So it's a great place to check out and see what we have up and coming for the rest of the year. So I think I gave some time for lots of questions to come in. So let's go through these and see what people are asking. Okay. Oh, fabulous question from Matthew. If I wanted to import customers who would be on a free plan and have no credit cards, is this possible? Matthew, unfortunately not. So Recurly is rather than being sort of an account management tool, our core functionality is around billing management. So if there's nothing to bill the customer, we're not quite as flexible. So when you are doing subscription billing, we do need to have a credit card on file. Now, of course, if these are users on a free plan and you want to track them within Recurly, you could just create them as accounts. So maybe you do something like just create the account with their information and put an account note that says they are on a free plan. That sort of gives you a basis to look at and make sure they're in the same system, but we would not be tracking any sort of billing or subscription information associated with their account. Oh, another great question here. What if, regarding my discussion about coupons for custom pricing, what if users made the coupon public? That's definitely something merchants are concerned about. So I'm going to switch back to my demo site and show you how Recurly works with this. So if I go back to my coupons page and create a new coupon, you'll see a section called constraints. So there are a few things you can do here. The first thing you can do is say that a coupon can only be applied to a specific plan. You can also tell Recurly how many times the coupon can be redeemed. And that's what you really want to work on for avoiding things like your coupon code going on Retail Me Not. You can generate unique coupon codes and then make sure that only one person can redeem them. So that way, even if it does go online and people are searching Retail Me Not and getting your coupon code, it's not going to work. That max redemption has already hit. The coupon cannot be applied to any other user. Now, one of the things that is sort of an interesting side note about coupons is the idea of bulk generating coupons is less successful than you might think. We've had merchants do sort of Groupon-like promotions where they've generated 100,000 coupon codes because they needed to give out all these unique coupon codes. When we looked into it, we found that only 0.004% of those coupons were actually redeemed. So all it did was create a lot of work and a lot of lag. So there are a lot of things we can do around coupon code offers. That's definitely something we can talk about on a one-on-one basis for people who are looking to do any sort of coupon offering. So that's always something to contact the support team about or contact me about, and I'm happy to provide some guidance there. All right, another question about a company who's doing a migration and they're asking what information is required. Well, at a very bare bones, we need the customer first name, last name, credit card number, and expiration date. For the purposes of imports only, we do not require a CVV. But you should expect that if you don't pass the CVV, you are going to have a higher number of declines. Banks just love to see that CVV number for the initial transaction through a system. But with any platform, even if we're working with Authorize.net, we don't get the CVV value. That value legally can't be stored. So during a migration process, we will not get that. So that's absolutely something we can help you with. If you don't have the CVV, that is not a problem. Okay, so another question about coupon codes. Is there an easy way to have custom pricing for the first billing period? Yes, and you know, on the same page, what you would want to think about doing is a coupon with a limited lifespan. So you can create a coupon that would only discount the user for 6 months. So any invoices that are generated within that 6-month time period receive whatever discount you define, then they revert back to their regular subscription pricing. So there's a lot of flexibility around coupons. You can discount your users either a fixed amount or a percentage-based fee. You can make a coupon apply forever on one invoice or, as we just discussed, for a limited period of time. You can also set sort of this redemption date, which means that after, you know, maybe for example, you want to have a Black Friday coupon. And so you can say that after that day, we can sit here and define, let's see, Black Friday is November 28th this year. So you could say that after November 29th, no one else can redeem it on their account. The sort of complexity with this, or the confusion I sometimes see, is the users who have redeemed it, it will still apply. You just can't have any new users snag that coupon code. So that's another great way to limit coupons and prevent sort of that whole internet search frenzy for coupon codes. I'll admit I'm the first person to go to Google when I'm buying something to look for a coupon code. So there's a lot of protections you can put into place to keep these coupons from going up. And of course, if this is something you're worried about, then you can explore things like adding credits to the account or using custom subscription pricing so that you don't even have to worry about a coupon code. There's a lot of flexibility here. All right, your questions have slowed down. Let's hear some more. Oh, another question. Will Recurly also migrate the billing address and email? Yes. So as part of the migration process, we create the accounts and the billing information. So any information your current provider can give us about the account or the billing information, we will be able to import. The other important thing is to think about account code. Account code is Recurly's unique identifier. And so a lot of merchants will want to have that tie to whatever unique ID they have in their own system. Unfortunately, payment gateways have their own unique identifier. So as part of an import process, we either use the gateway's ID or we work with the merchant to sort of map everything and make sure that when the gateway tells us a specific ID, we're matching it to a specific account code. So we can make sure that the account code system works for you, because once this is created, an account code is the one field that cannot be modified. So that's also something to think about as you think about a migration, what you want to do about account codes. Oh, so we have a good question about tiered pricing. So tiered is not something Recurly handles by default. We don't have a configuration that says if you send us this, we'll bill the customer that. But it is an interesting question because it is a way Recurly used to bill. In the past, we used to have transaction volume based pricing. So if you did up to 200 transactions a month, you were billed $69 a month, up to 500, $299. So the way to handle that is using the API. So you're going to want to track usage on your side, which is either quantity or cell phone minutes or website URLs is another thing we hear for domain hosting. And then each month before the customer renews, just tell Recurly, do a subscription plan override and let us know what to bill the customer. This is a great way to integrate with our webhooks because Recurly will let you know when a subscription renews, we will send a notification, and in that it will say next renewal date. So you can store that value locally and just make sure to send us a subscription update before that date with their usage, and we'll make sure to bill them accordingly. We actually have some great documentation that talks about this sort of billing. We see it frequently with Stripe models, prepaid cell phone minutes, that sort of thing. So I'll just hop over to our docs site quickly and show you where that lives. So our docs on metered billing is definitely what you're going to want to check out. We actually have a whole video that talks through tiered billing, and it's not painful. It's only about 2.5 minutes long. So Sam, definitely something to take a look at after this call, and we can help you integrate that as well. Oh, another good question about free subscriptions. So if you want to have a user on free subscription, can you use custom pricing to discount it to 0 as long as you have their subscription data? Absolutely. So as long as the customer has billing information, I can go into the account and I can add a legacy plan, for example, and bill them $0. So this way I'm tracking this as a free user, but there's nothing being billed. And I'm able to do that because there is credit card information on file. So definitely an option, something we see a lot of companies do when it's really critical for them to track free subscription plans. Someone's asking if we have a list of gateways we've worked with so far. Well, we've worked with a ton of them. I don't have a list publicly, but if this is a migration, if you're looking to migrate, just shoot me an email and I can talk with you in more detail about whether or not we've worked with your provider and what the experience has been like. Another great question is, if I have just a handful of people in another system, what should I do? This comes up a lot. I actually had a request to migrate one credit card once, and I said, well, this takes about 3 business days on our side. It might be easier to either call the customer and get it over the phone or have them resubscribe. And that's exactly what they did. We want to definitely help with imports, but part of it is sort of recognizing the cost-benefit analysis of going through this very formal process, which can take a lot of time, versus maybe sending your customers an email and a small $5 credit to resubscribe. Especially with a provider like PayPal, you're not going to be able to get that information out of the system. So your only option is to have them resubscribe via Recurly. Another question was, is there a way to initiate a specific dunning state for imported accounts? Well, you can't put a specific timeline on them. Like, for example, they only have 3 days left on their dunning cycle. But when you are importing a customer, if they have a past due balance, add that to their account. So we'll just say here that my customer here is in serious arrears, and post the charge to their account. So this way, either as is right now, when their subscription renews, this uninvoiced charge will be rolled into their next invoice and they'll be collected. Alternatively, right now, I can say generate this invoice. I can review everything, and then I can post it and try to collect from that user right away. If this fails, this invoice will begin the dunning cycle from the start. So we can't import sort of their current state in the dunning timeline, but you can certainly catch up on those past due invoices via Recurly. All right. Oh, some really good questions about importing with the trial ends at. So the reason why I love the custom trial period is because you have a lot of control over the customer communication. So like I mentioned with that future start date, the downside is you can't really disable the email because at the same time you have all of these new users signing up and you want to make sure they get their welcome email. And there's this really long time period. It could be anywhere from a month to a few years where you have these legacy users who are rolling over and you might have to have the email disabled to prevent that. What's better to do, in my experience, is to disable the new subscription email for a short period of time. And right after that's disabled, import in all of your legacy users. So import them using that trial period date. And then as soon as the import is deleted or completed, turn it back on. This means that at most, you're going to have the email disabled for an hour or two. Not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. And if you have a user who signs up during that time period, you can always use this functionality that is actually right here on my screen to resend the email that was missed. So, Boris, we can definitely talk strategy on that, but it is completely doable to not send that email to your customer. And yes, just to compound on that, because it sounds like there are more questions around emails, I do recommend disabling emails when you do an import. Customers get confused. We send emails anywhere from new subscriptions to a subscription change or even a payment declined. Depending on what kind of communication you want Recurly to start with, I would just disable all of these during your import process, and then you can turn them on as you're ready to start communicating with your customers again. All right, we are close to our end time, and I see the questions are dying down, so I'm going to pull up my monitor again and add in this bonus link here. If you have questions for later, or if you want to discuss what a migration will look like for your specific scenario, my calendar is online. I do book up really, really quickly. I spend almost all day on the phone with customers, so you may have a little bit of a wait, but use this to book time slots with me in 30-minute sessions. I think you can do 30 minutes to an hour, but 30 minutes is usually pretty sufficient. And I'll follow up with some meeting call information, and we can talk. Like I mentioned, this is a pretty critical part of your billing strategy, and I want to make sure we're setting you off on the best foot. You're not going to get this level of customer support from another provider. I will literally be your best friend while you work on a customer import, and we will make it a lovely process. I will note that when you schedule a meeting with me, you'll be a little bit of a guinea pig. I always invite new Recurly employees to listen in on these meetings. It's always critical for them to hear right from our merchants' mouths the issues they have, the questions they have. So you'll always see a whole list of attendees, but they're just listening in and learning. It's a great way for our new employees to onboard to the product, so I love doing it for them. And actually, I'm going to jump back to one other question because it's a great question. Are credit cards verified after the import? They are not. And this is actually very intentional as part of the import because we know any number of things can go wrong during an import process. So, and we don't want to reject a card during the import just because that failed. Clearly, at some point, the card was verified, you had it in the system. So we import the card without verification. And then as their subscription renews, of course, the card is checked. And then you have the ability to, the customer has the ability to update their billing information before their subscription is terminated. The idea is really just that you create a lot of extra work for yourself if you do not import credit cards in the beginning. This allows the automated functionality of Recurly to take care of all of that work for you. And yes, this webinar I've been recording, so I'll get this webinar converted into a movie file and we'll get it up on info.recurly.com as soon as possible. So it looks like the questions are dying down, and I'm guessing I'm going to have a lot of meeting invitations booked on my calendar when I close the session. So I look forward to connecting with all of you, and let me know if any other questions come up. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.